All right, Glenn, I think we're actually live now. I hit the record button. Uh, I
Very good.
am totally honored, excited. I've been waiting for this for a while to have you live in our group. You've seen the outrage, the excitement in the group of having you here. Everybody is in awe of you, the collection that you have. So, first of all, welcome and thank you for doing this with us
Thanks
tonight.
for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I really
Yes.
do. A
Yeah.
great group. I'll tell you what. I joined, and I've been blown away. What a great down to earth group that you have. So,
Thank
thank you, thank
thank
you for
you.
inviting me.
And I want to thank you for the care package that you sent in the mail personally as well. That was
Yes, sir.
incredible.
And
So,
you did as well. uh,
well, Glenn, obviously we want to jump in and we want
yeah,
to understand you a little bit more and the collection that you have. Um, if you can, before we get into it, and I know you're going to take us around and show us a
yeah.
few things, but if you can, just share a little bit of a history behind it all,
Mhm.
how it got started. I know that you were born in Green Bay, Wisconsin. You're
Right.
now in Texas, but give us a little bit of history behind all this, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, in 1984, I moved from Menominee Falls to um, to Texas for a job opportunity. And so I traveled back and forth to Wisconsin to see my family and so forth. And when I went back, my mom gave me or asked me, "Hey, Glenn, you're a Packer fan. Would you like all my stuff from when I was with the Packers?" And I said, "Wow, yeah, I definitely would." And so she gave me all of her batons and her programs and her field passes and letters from the Packers from the 19 or early 1940s, 1940 to 45 is when my mom was in there. Curly Lambeau came to Green Bay East High School, saw her twirling at the halftime of the high school football game, and he said, "Wow, I want that girl to join the gruff Green Bay Packer lumberjack band." He wanted to bring a woman's touch to the sideline. So she was the first baton majorette with the Packer lumberjack band, and so she was out there with the likes of Don Hudson, Curly Lambeau, and so forth. Um, so when I got those items, I took them back to Texas here, and I was like, well, now what am I going to do? And I've got to display them somehow. So I put them up on my wall in my office, my home office. And so I said, well, shoot, up in the attic, I have my old football helmet. I got my electric football set from when I was a kid. I've got a few things, a bobblehead, um, stickers, whatever. And so little by little, I dragged it all out, started displaying it. And that's how it started. So that was in 1994 is when my collection actually started.
Okay. Now, at that
Yeah.
time in 1994, how big was your collection then? You said your mom gave you a bunch. Did you have any idea of the impact that it would get to today?
None. When I started, Jim, I had my mom's stuff, the few things that I have that I had in the attic, and then I added, a Bart Starr throwback jersey, a Nitschke, and I think Taylor maybe, and had them signed. I sent them to wherever to have them signed, and so that was my collection, and it's grown from that point in 1994 to what it is today, where I'm actually trying to talk my wife into get another room in my house to expand it. So
Wow.
yeah, I had no idea it would keep going. The whole thing. You're an outer stater as well. I can't just. I'm 1,100 miles from Lambeau Field and 1,100 miles from Green Bay, and I just love those days of being there, and I miss it so much. And when I come up to my room, I feel like I'm back in Green Bay.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and it's been welcome. Our whole all of our relatives moved from Wisconsin down here. We have over 90 people here now. And so, they just all love coming here and seeing the Packer room. And of course, I'm always showing it off to somebody. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're going to take us here in just a minute. You're going to show us, you have 2 rooms. Is that correct?
I do.
Okay. Will you do me a favor, because so many questions have already come up, okay? And
Sure.
I just want to, as we go through this, I'm going to read some of them off just right now, that maybe as you're going through it, you could keep these in mind and answer them as we go through it. So I just want to bring some of them to the front right now. Here's one by Josh that says, your most prized item. What is one piece that you will never let go? I don't think you would let any of them go, for one.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Do you own Super Bowl rings? I know for a fact that you do.
I do.
First piece, favorite piece, and why, and a most sentimental piece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any pieces that you're still looking for? Have you ever bought a signed piece and found out that it was forged? I have. I think many people have, especially in the Brett Favre collection.
Yep. Nothing to be ashamed of.
Nope.
That's a good learning experience.
Yep. Yeah. What is your Holy Grail piece? What is that number one piece for you?
Yeah.
Favorite moment as a Packer fan, if you have one of those. Now that might be outside the memorabilia realm.
Yeah.
Something that
maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. What is your absolute? Well, this goes with all the other ones, but what is your absolute favorite piece of memorabilia that you own and means the most to you? We've kind of hit that. How many years have you been collecting? I think that's kind of been answered. What was the hardest piece in your collection to get a hold of?
Hardest.
What is one piece that you dream of but still don't have?
Okay.
And then what inspired you to start your collection? And I know, and I'm watching the comments as this go through, and I'll kind of throw out some other things to you as well.
Sure.
But if you want to just take it from here, I myself am in awe. I'd love to sit back and let you talk, and I'll follow along just like everybody else.
Okay. Well, what I guess I'll do first is I'm going to take my iPad off the tripod so I can walk around. I'm just going to do a 360 in this room and then a 360 in the other room. And then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to go to specific items and talk a little bit about each thing that'll answer a lot of those questions.
Perfect.
And I'm going to try to do a slow 360 because I don't want to get pixelated or anything. But anyway, bear with me just a second while I do this.
As you're doing that, I have some of your friends like Chad Orvit just jumped in that I know he would love for me to say hello for him to you. He's a great friend
Chad.
of mine. And, there's other people in here as well that absolutely like Steve Tate, Steve Tate, the owner.
Sure.
He's not with us tonight, but he wanted me to let you know he'll be watching this later on, and he sends his love as well.
Love Steve. He's been here before. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to switch the camera and see if did it switch. Yep.
And as you're doing that as well, maybe think about in regards to, I know that you have tons of pennants, you have tons of banners. Maybe you have a favorite pennant you want to show out, or maybe a favorite banner or a broad sign or something like that as well.
Okay. All right. What I've got here, what I'm showing you now is one of the walls in the large room. And you can see I've got, some large banners that were all around Green Bay and around what was called City Stadium back there in '57. In 65, 61 banners. We've got one of the things I really like collecting are pennants, and I've got probably one of the most complete collections of vintage Packer pennants, and I think you'll see a lot of them are just crazy old. These happen to be my favorites right here. And you asked, what some of the harder things were for me to get for the collection, and that would be these pennants that I'm showing you right here. The old blue and gold pennants, just I think they get us all going because they're so ultra rare and so ultra cool. I love the blue and gold era. As I go up the wall, you're going to see a lot of great ones. This is a great pennant from 1941. And we go up, and it's just pretty much one pennant after another. I hope you guys can
I love
see
the ones with the team.
the team. Oh, the photos.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Yep, those are great. Somewhat hard to get. There's an old broadside from the second year of the Packers. Their kickoff game for the second year of City Stadium is what I meant to say, not of the Packers, but City Stadium. So that's a pretty cool old broadside. This is a kind of a cool thing. This is a Paul Hornung's 1961 NFL Player of the Year trophy.
Oh my God!
Right there, and that's pretty cool. Down below is actually Curly Lambeau's trunk from the 30s and 40s when they were trying to get the team off the ground and financially stable, I guess, more than anything. That's a player's trunk on the bottom there. I'm moving over here. Of course, we've got all sorts of pennants up on the ceiling. I've got just a ridiculous amount of bobbleheads. I think anybody looking at that would think there's clearly something wrong with this. And I will agree. And my wife would agree. I just got into collecting those.
Now, Glenn, go back to those bobbleheads just for a minute. I'd like to point out something here as well. Yeah. Is even right there in front of you, that Danbury Mint, 1966, 67, somewhere around there.
Yes.
And the Curly Lambeau statue right next to it, and the Vince Lombardi statue. Now, some of those are a little bit more common, maybe not the Danbury Mint one. That's kind of hard to get and keep it in great keepsake because those break very easily.
They do.
But you have, stuff that is vintage, but you have some up-to-date stuff as well.
I've tried to mix in a few up-to-date items. And honestly, I used to have a lot more current items. And as my collection grew, I had to take it out and replace it with more vintage things that were more valuable or more meaningful to me. So here's some hats from Super Bowl I and Super Bowl II, which are pretty cool. And, of course, a lot of people, there's some kissing nodders, but a lot of people collect glassware. And, I'm not real big into it, but I get into the old designs and so forth. There's my old electric football set from when I was a kid that I talked about earlier. And
now, if people follow you on your Facebook page, if you go back to that shelf that you were just at, I saw some decals sitting on there. And recently, you kind of advertised on those. Could you share just a little bit what you shared on your Facebook group? I tell you, I've been following you, man, and I'm in amazement just in those decals there.
Are you saying you're stalking me?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you were stalking Doug. Now I get added to the list. So. These packages of decals here, I had talked about on my website, and it kind of a cool story. My dad worked for the company that he was a design artist. He worked for the company that designed the first Packer G and for the helmets. And for the longest time when I was a kid, I thought the G stood for Glen. I was just a little kid back then. And so my dad had these packages of, just in brown paper, like, well, where is it? Just like this. And in a cabinet in the basement. And, when he went to work one day, I went down there and I was like, well, I've got to figure out what's in there. And I opened them up and they're just full of Glen decals. And so I stuck them everywhere. I mean, I had them on metal cabinets. I had a rock polisher when I was a kid. I put them on the drum of that so I could watch them go around. I think I had an MDA Carnival and I gave them out as prizes while my dad was at work. And so little did I know that those things would be priceless someday. And those were the actual first Packer G's for the helmets. And
incredible.
I was using the darn things. So yeah, just amazing, just amazing.
And right up above that, I have to shout out as well. You have a wine bottle sitting in the back right there. Did Mr. Chad Orvik kind of help you out with that?
That's for Mr. Chad right there. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you again, Chad. He is a gem when it comes to that.
He is.
Anything with Jerry Kramer, you will. It's going to be connected to Chad.
Yep.
So.
All right, and I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm in awe, man.
Please, anything. I think you'll notice I have a sign up here that says Christensen Groceries. My grandparents had a grocery store just a few blocks away from Lambeau, so that's where I grew up, just hanging out there. And I'd even sit on the curb in the fall and listen to the game. I could hear the crowd cheering and I always knew if the Packers were doing great because you'd hear cheering nonstop, and of course it was the '60s and Packers are great. So my biggest dream was wanting Bart Starr to turn into because they had gas pumps. I thought if I sit here long enough, he's going to stop in, get some gas, and throw me a few passes, and what never happened. But
wow.
Here's an old blanket from the 30s that my wife just got me not too long ago. Just amazing. Over here is cool. I love this probably more than, well, I always say stuff like that and I don't mean it. I love these. I love these coats, but I don't have any really favorite Packer stuff. It's all it all weighs the same in my mind. In the background there, you see an old trench coat type. That's probably one of the oldest Packer coats, that I have. There's only a couple of them in existence. And I was so lucky to get that from a former player, family of a former player. This is an old 30s and 40s, the blue and gold sweaters. And of course, then you have, the Lombardi era sideline coats. And that's actually Dad Brashear's coat right there, with the old logo on it that says World Champions.
Wow.
And then Lombardi always wanted his assistant coaches to look sharp. So that's one of the assistants. I'm going to call it a sport coat, I guess. And then just some vintage Letterman coats. Over here, we've got, all the championship programs from over the years, all the way down to Super Bowl 45. Might be hard to see down there because it's a little dark, but got those all there. And of course, this monstrosity is my Bart Starr statue. I managed to find one of those when Just for Feet was going out of business, and I went and got that in Oklahoma. So that was a great find. This wall here is cabinets that I built to house footballs and trophies and jewelry and you name it. This is a great sign that I that I got. That's from the 60s and 70s. That helped. You'll see this in old Packer yearbooks and Packer books. That was over the Packer practice field, and good God, I mean, when I found that, my good friend Mike at Card and Coin actually found that for me, and he is a gem for sure. So, okay, so then back here, so these are the lockers that I built originally for the room, and what I did, I don't have the picture anymore. Anyway, I found a picture of what the old locker room looked like. So I got expanded metal, and I got, I built these lockers from scratch. I made the nameplates for them. I own a printing company, mainly because of my guilt of using all the Packer G's. That's how I got into stickers. So, but I originally had all my childhood, heroes in here. I had Bart Starr and Ray Nitschke, Paul Hornung, Jim Taylor, Jerry Kramer. And so now I've got it in 2 rooms, so I kind of split them up. But we've got signed helmets in all of them. I'll come back to here. This is kind of cool. Everybody always likes to see this. Jerry Kramer's player's contract. And what's cool about this is, see if I can get it here. Get it on here. You can see it's signed by Pete Rozelle, which is a tough signature to find. And it's signed by Vince Lombardi and Jerry Kramer as well. So I love these old contracts. It's just amazing what these guys played for compared to today. And I've got, this is Ray Nitschke's player's contract. 1968, he was making $33,000 a year.
Oh my goodness.
So I love these. It's a Pro Bowl helmet. It's an actual helmet, and I'm going to come in close. You can see the Packer G underneath the NFL shield. So Donnie's been to my house a few times, and Donnie Anderson, this is his helmet. And he explained to me that they basically left immediately after the Super Bowl or championship, I guess, and flew with their equipment to the Pro Bowl. And so they got there and they took their helmet and spray painted it gold and put the NFL shield right over it. So wow, those are pretty cool. I've got his and I've got Carol Dale's. This is Carol Dale's Pro Bowl helmet right here. So those are pretty rare to find. All right.
Glenn, I got to jump in real quick and say that those lockers and your display cases and everything, it's amazing how you've displayed those. Amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I built them myself. My dad was really great with wood, and he taught me a lot of woodworking skills, and I didn't think I really could figure out how to do all this stuff, but I somehow got through it. And but I appreciate you saying that. I think I'm going to save the footballs and the other stuff till last, Jim.
Okay.
I'm going to go into the other room. And so what I did in here is I built the New Day locker room. I found some obvious pictures, of the current locker room, and I built these. Actually, I had a 1-week window, 10-day window. I sent my wife to Paris. This was my son's room. He went to college. So I had basically a week to clear it out and build these lockers and move in here before she got back. And yes, I was in some deep doo-doo when she got back. She still talks about it. But she loves how it turned out, and she just was upset she didn't get a chance to say goodbye to all my son's things. But anyway, we got over that. But in here we have, the sideline bags, the equipment bags. This is just incredible. Fred Thurston set me up with this. This is Fuzzy Thurston's blanket from 1959.
Wow.
Just an incredible piece. This is a sideline bench from the 60s and 70s. Lots of helmets. I don't have places to go with all the helmets I have, to be honest with you. But on this wall, I've got just great items. I've got programs going back to 1926 and 27, 28. I've got, that's a Curly Lambeau contract copy. That's a really cool item there that I found. That was a feasibility study showing when the Packers were considering making it a year-round venue to try to get some more money in the door, and they were going to put the cover on it like Minnesota, and thank God they never did that.
Yes.
And we got, let's see, I've got
Stock certificates.
Packer stock from the 50s, and of course I'm a stockholder from the last two share sales, and there's another 1950s there. I got some old broadsides from the 60s, the schedules. I just love those. They just take up so much room. I've got lots, quite a few more, but I just can't display them all. This is a great piece right here. This is a envelope, and you can see right in the middle, it says Curly Lambeau right there. But the whole team, 1937 team, signed the back of this envelope, and in a train station, they were playing in Washington, D.C., and this guy was a stamp collector, so he was mailing himself this envelope back to have he did that whenever he traveled. He'd get a envelope with a stamp on it, and it would be stamped with the city. Well, he runs into the Packers and has them sign it all. He actually mailed it to himself with all those incredible signatures on there. And anyway, the family found it when they were going through his things, and luckily got a hold of me, and he's got a great home here. Wow. This is a great letter here. This letter here is from Calhoun, G.H. Calhoun, who was in charge of the ticket sales for the Packers. And this is 1929. This is September 11th. This is their one of their championship years, and he's talking to people about the board that, hey, we've got a couple weeks left. We've got to get the rest of these tickets sold, and apparently that happened because the Packers are still here. But what had happened? There we go. What had happened just a few weeks later than the meeting was the Great Depression hit. And so in my mind, if they hadn't sold those tickets prior to the Depression hitting, I don't think the Packers would be around anymore. So that's a pretty amazing thing when you think about it. There's an old ticket reservation form from that year, 1929. That's just that. Again, like you said, I've mixed in a few modern pieces. That's a piece that was available from Jostens after we won Super Bowl 45. It has the tops of all the Super Bowl rings in it, which I thought was just crazy great. And so I had to get that. And everybody's seen this. My kids got me this, and you know what? It's not old, and it's one of my favorite pieces. Just because those three guys I love. I love all three of them. So what a joy it's been in my lifetime to watch all three of them. Yes. This is an ice bowl bench. This is one of only three that are in existence. This was carried out by a gentleman of the Ice Bowl, and when he saw me on a Green Bay station one time, he called the station and said, "I want to give this guy something," and he he actually gave me this bench, and I was obviously floored by it. That's a sideline marker from the Ice Bowl. Here is a picture of the Ice Bowl right here, and you can see the. See that's.
Yeah,
But you can see,
that helmet right there in that picture.
yeah,
Is that one of the same helmets that you own?
that is up here. Yeah,
There it is. There it is.
yeah, that's actually one of the sideline helmets right there. Yeah, so we've got a bunting from the Ice Bowl that's signed by Bart, and this is all the things that my mom gave me. This is the sideline passes from different games. She'd go on the train and all over the place the Packers went. There was a great patch by our friend Bill Zawitsky, and this is my mom. Let's see if I can get my finger. My mom is right there in the all red dress, and and that's her right there.
Now you just mentioned Bill as well. He's in our group, but
yeah.
tell me if I'm wrong. But Bill you mentioned one of 3 of those Ice Bowl benches. Bill's one of those people that has one. Is that correct?
No, well, this is actually the type of bench that Bill and I have together. This is actually from Milwaukee County Stadium.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
yeah. But the one he has is a gem as well. You know, these wood benches are just amazing.
Yeah.
I guess I'll back out here just a little bit, but you'll notice the floor is turf, and it's a little hard to make out because I've got stuff sitting on it. But this side right here is the side of the P, and then if you follow the camera, that would be the outside of the P. So what I got here, and you can see the beginning of the A. When I went to Super Bowl 45 here in Dallas, I was there. I was at the stadium the Wednesday before, a couple days before, and I noticed they were putting the turf down, and I was like, "Well, son of a gun, they're putting in different turf than they had." I just assumed they painted it or something, you know. But no, they were putting in new turf, and I said, "Well, I'm going to find out what they're doing with that after." And so the minute the game was over, the next day I was on the phone with the NFL trying to find, you know, what are you doing with that? And so apparently somebody had thought about it a little before I did, and they bought it, and they were chopping up into 1 inch by 1 inch squares for little plaques, and that they were selling for $100 each. So I called the guy and I said, "Well, I need a 10-foot by 10-foot piece." And when he recovered from that statement, then we came to an agreement of what this would cost. And luckily they had it right in a warehouse in Fort Worth, not too far from my office. And so I went over there and got it. And the thing weighs about 300 pounds. It still has all the black pellets in it from, that they put in it.
Right.
But it's actually the P that is on this right here. He's kneeling on the P with the winning touchdown. And I was in that end zone with my son in Dallas, and that's when I looked down and I said, "I'm going to get that piece of turf," and I did. So, let's see here. Got
those drums are incredible.
That's a cool piece, yes. And got some Favre jerseys. A couple of those are used from the Pro Bowls. Let's see, back over here, I've just got some, players that were meaningful to me over the years, and just great things to have. Super Bowl 31 signed helmet, and in these lockers I've got, you can see I've got my the big three here: Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers. I've got, of course, game used shoes. Oop, put my finger over it. Game used shoes, cleats from Rodgers and Favre. Kind of cool. This is one of the game used balls from the Super Bowl. Those are pretty hard to find. This one has the NFL sticker on it, and fumble. There we go. Yeah, this is a Packers ball. Occasionally you'll see them, but they're going to be a Steelers ball, and the Packers ones are the hard ones to get. So I was thrilled to find that. Reggie White, that's a signed helmet that he had. The helmet is so heavy, it's just crazy. His game used shoes, and Jim Taylor got, those are his, oh, I keep doing that. Those are his cleats. I'm hoping you can see number 31 on the back of those cleats. They still have mud in them.
Wow.
And that makes it so cool and so meaningful. And then I got Donnie Anderson here, another game helmet of his. And so these, they're all my heroes. Of course, where do you stop? I mean, there's just so many great Packers, and you just I'm out of room. I mean, that's the bottom line. I'm out of room, and you can only show so many. This is old. This is the original Lambeau Field bleachers from before they put the wonderful metal bleachers, and you can see the numbers are stamped in it. And so I was lucky enough to get an 8-foot section of that. I don't know if you are familiar with that story of where they came from.
I was not. No.
Okay.
No.
Well, so a gentleman, a builder in Green Bay, was selling those online, like just one number. And I got a hold of him. I went up there and I said, I've got to have a full bench. And we came to an agreement, and turns out that he was doing a building project on a A-frame that was owned by one of the board members in the Packer in the 60s. Okay, board member of the 60s. And all the A-frame was made out of these timbers. They took them out of Lambeau Field, and instead of throwing them away, he built a house out of them.
Oh my goodness.
So this guy was smart enough to take them all home and sell them. So, okay, so that's it for that room. Do you want to take a break to do some of your festivities, or you want me to keep going?
I would love for you to keep going. I'm like everybody else, and I'm reading through the comments here, and everybody is honestly just in awe, Glenn. Seriously.
Wow.
It's amazing. This is a piece of history.
This is one of my favorite pieces right here. I'm doing a little commercial for you, Jim.
I appreciate that.
I've got to wet my whistle here while I'm talking. So.
No problem. It's amazing. When I sit there and I look at all this, I think of the history. I think of the tradition. I think of, the Packers. And I've got to meet Jim Taylor and these guys, the ones that recently have passed away. And it's sad, but man, you have it right there with you all the time, that you could go into your rooms and you could relive history. And it's amazing.
Well, it is. I'm clearly very, very lucky to.
You're blessed.
Where are you? Hold on, I lost you.
I think you might have turned off your video on the Zoom. There you go.
I got it. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
That would have been bad. I just have such a weird family history with the Packers, because with my mom being involved, and then, my mom was very close with Don Hudson over the years. And, every Christmas we'd get a Christmas card, and my mom, oh, we got a Christmas card from Don, and I can't remember his wife's name, but I was like, well, great. I don't know who that is. I had no clue when I was a little kid. And, so I put it all together when I got a little older, and I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? One item, and you had mentioned a couple questions. What was the hardest thing for me to get, and what's the most meaningful thing? This football right here is actually really one of the most meaningful things that I have. You can see it says Don Hudson, April 20th, 1950. Well, Don came to my mom's hospital and gave that to her the day my brother was born. And that's his birthday, April 20th. And so that football, along with a signed team ball from the 60s, sat on my dresser because my brother and I shared a bedroom. And so he had absolutely no desire to follow the Packers. He just had no love for football at all. So I just stared at these things. I mean, that was everything to me. And so anyway, as we got older, sometimes you drift apart. My brother and I were not that close, especially because we're 10 years apart, and it just didn't happen. But I asked him if I could buy that football from him. Well, he actually sold it to somebody else. And so I looked and looked and looked, and I'd been interviewed by, lots of newspapers and magazines and TV, and I'd always mention, they always say, well, what's the one thing you're looking for? Well, that was it. And so a collector friend and dealer friend, Chris Nearat, who I think might be a member of your group as well, he actually was sent the pictures of this ball to his office, and he knew I was looking for it, and he said, Glenn, I think I found your brother's football. And sure enough, it was. And I'll be honest, I cried. I mean, I'd been looking for this ball for 20 years, and Chris found it for me and gave it to me. And so that thing is very meaningful to me. So, yeah.
So it's probably the most sentimental piece, and you just turned off your camera again, just so you know. But it's probably the most sentimental piece that you have, you would say. Uh-oh. There he goes. There you are.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay.
All right. What's my most sentimental piece?
Would it be that football?
That would be probably the most sentimental. But, I've definitely got cooler items. There's no question about that. I'm going to go to my case here, and, these right here are, I hope you can see this. Sometimes the lighting is crazy, but these are all game balls that, these are from Fuzzy Thurston. These are game balls that are presented to him, signed by Lombardi and, the other team members. And they used to be painted gray. They've seen better days. They've been in his bar. And so they're a little smoky and so forth, but I just love that they were his. Yeah. This ball here, I love. It is Reggie White's game ball that he was presented at the Super Bowl for breaking the NFL sack record. Reggie was one of my all-time favorites. I don't think anybody changed the game as much as he did, and I honestly don't think this is a big surprise, but I don't think Green Bay would have had the Super Bowl they had without him. And I just love that I have that. This is a Favre ball when he broke Bart Starr's record of consecutive starts. So that's kind of a cool ball. But I've got, of course, just lots and lots of team sign balls, from the 60s. And, it's kind of hard to see in here, but on my Facebook page, I've got all of these really well documented. But I have a pretty good collection of all vintage pins and pin backs that a lot of them are just ridiculously hard to find. This is probably, get this here. These are probably the hardest ones to get right here. That's a 1920 1929 Packers.
Wow.
Those are pocket mirrors, and they were made by Stiller, the photographer, and they're just so ultra rare to have. And they probably should be, well, I was going to say a museum, but I guess it is a museum. But
Yeah, they're in a museum. I'll tell you that.
In the Packer Hall of Fame, but this is a great piece that I found. This is a candy box. If anybody grew up in Green Bay, you knew Kopp's Candies. And so this is a 1929 candy box with one of the Stiller world champ photos laminated to it. And so and it says, "With congratulations, Otto Kopp," on the back. And so he gave these to the players in 1929 as a congratulations for winning the world championship. So that's a pretty cool thing. There's Vince Lombardi's mask card when he died. Kind of a neat little item.
Looks like you got some pieces of goalposts right there.
Who doesn't? There is actually 3.5 miles of goalposts, apparently, because they sure sold a lot of it. But who knows? I hope it is. But yeah, I got all sorts of great stuff. It's almost too hard to to get into it. I think I have these on the website. That's Reggie White's Players Association card, NFL Players Association card, and this is his NFL card showing that he's a member of the NFL. So those are pretty cool items.
That's awesome. Glenn, what would you consider your rarest piece that you have?
Well, that's an easy one. I'm going to go to the center. I'm going to go to the center cabinet. And, I've got, fun things in here. I've got, of course, Vince Lombardi gave jewelry to his players and friends and so forth. And so I've got a lot of cufflinks and tie pins and so forth. I've got some great rings. These are, 65 championship. That's a prototype ring of Super Bowl I. This is one of the few that has an emerald in it. And here's a tie pin that goes with it with an emerald. And since you have a no swearing policy, I can't tell you what Lombardi said about the emerald, but he told him to get it. Anyway, get it out of there. My boys deserve diamonds. So that's how we ended up with this ring, and that's an actual Super Bowl ring right there with real diamonds and all that. This is a Super Bowl II ring right here.
Whose were they? Are you allowed to say?
I better not.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But I've got trying to get this camera lined up. Again, great jewelry, gold money holders, and this is a great piece that matches the ring. 1960. This was actually presented to I'll pan over here. Actually presented to Tony Canadeo. He was a coach for the Packers back then as well. Love this. This is Reggie White's 75th anniversary, the NFL 75th anniversary all NFL team pin. And it's got a diamond in it. Let me try to get it. It's got a diamond in it just perfect.
Oh, you
It's a
can see it right
beautiful
between
piece.
the numbers, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then, of course, there's shareholder rings from Super Bowl 31 and Super Bowl 45. And so, okay, so the rarest thing, got a couple things. This is City of Green Bay was so excited to have a winning team in 1961 that 1960 they had a winning record, is what I meant to say. That the Chamber of Commerce gave Vince Lombardi this trophy.
Wow.
And I absolutely love having a trophy that Lombardi was given.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And of course, the following year they'd win the World Championship. Over here, I've got Bart Starr's 1966 playbook, and this thing just puts chills up my spine because the whole thing is written inside in his hand, in his pen. And the B's are exactly the way he signs his name, and
wow.
I mean, it's just incredible to look through this. And you see the Packers sweep in it, and it's just amazing that made it through time. This is probably my favorite item. If I was to give a favorite item, this is an actual ice bowl football right here. This was lettered the couple days after the ice bowl, and I got it from the equipment manager's family, and along with another football, and that's one of two that I know of. The other one is in the Packer Hall of Fame, and to have that is just beyond anything. I never thought I'd have that. I used to go to the Packer Hall of Fame and I'd stare at that football and I'm like, well, of course nobody's going to get a game used football from the ice bowl, and I do, and that's definitely one of the pieces I'm most proud of, and I absolutely love it. From the same source, this is from the 1965 NFL Championship game, the Mud Bowl, and that was Jim Brown's last game with the Browns. So that's a pretty meaningful football there as well. And so those two, all four of these items, I just really, I just love. I love having those game used championship footballs. I never thought I'd have those.
Yeah, that's amazing. You have them all four right there. So that's the favorite shelf.
I think it is. It's kind of odd. I didn't plan that, but now that I'm looking at it and talking, apparently that's why I have those there. And along with those ticket stubs. I mean, that's a ultra rare full ticket stub from the Ice Bowl. I don't know why somebody didn't want to go to that nice warm game that day, but they didn't use their ticket. And this is a full ticket from the 67, well, I guess 66 season, but that was the game that the Packers beat the Cowboys here in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. So both very rare tickets to have. Okay, so this cabinet here, great stuff. I've got these particular ones are game used footballs. You can see that they're numbered. Let me try to move it. You see they're numbered, and what they did is I think they had 6 balls per game. There's 6, or I think it was 6. But when they used the football, they'd bring it in, and the equipment people would number them and for inventory purposes, and they'd put them in the practice room because they couldn't reuse the balls for another game. So from there, then they used them for quarterbacks for a month, and then they went to some other group for a month, and then it was the kickers that got them last, and after they wore off enough. But they're very, very rare to find. Very, very rare to find these with the numbers on them. if you look closely, on these pictures of Vince and Bart, you know, uh, posing for pictures, Vince is wearing that satin jacket, and you'll notice the footballs have the numbers on them, and so it's pretty cool. So I've got umpteen signed footballs here. Um, lots of Packers from the '60s. I definitely got into doing collecting 1960s footballs for obvious reasons. These are all hand signed balls. Um, I've got one that's a night football from the 1950s, signed by Bobby Lane and the other members of that team. But the rest of these are all Vince Lombardi and team signed balls. Up here, I've got these are can hardly make out that this is a football, but this is a great football. I don't know if you can see that, but that says Curly Lambeau right there. So
Wow.
this is 1937. That's actually 1936 football. That's the year that they won the championship. And this is another football. When they won the championship, and then they played the college all-stars that year. This football was actually spray painted gold, and then they signed it. And of course, the gold paint turned a dark color, so it's very, very hard to make out. But the history is still there, and it's pretty cool to have. I can make out signatures, but it takes a little bit of work to work through it. But yeah, in total, I've got about 21 signed footballs from the '60s, and it's a little bit mind-boggling. I got more up there, and of course, and again, you talked about some of the newer stuff, and just like everybody else, shoot, we had a really great run of them putting us on Wheaties boxes, but then you get to this one from 1964, and that one is as rare as it gets right there. That's when Bart Starr was in the back, and they gave out these. You get these stamps to put in a book, and that one is so rare to find. I looked for that one forever. Actually, I think I have the book. Yeah, this is a stamp book that the stamps go in. So yeah. So yeah, I do. To answer your question about that, Jim, my collection used to be really, a little bit more present day, I guess, is what I'd call it. And as I keep running out of room, I have packed it up. I've got stuff in storage at my office that is just crazy. I mean, the amount that I have in storage is just crazy. But it's stuff I've had to move out of here, and I keep it safe. So
Incredible. Glenn, do you have a piece? I kind of mentioned it, one of the questions out there that you have on your mind that you want to go after. Is there a dream piece out there that you don't have that you are eyeballing at this moment trying to get a hold of?
There always is, a good question. Years ago, I've kicked myself in the butt ever since that I didn't buy, Vince Lombardi's sideline coat. The trench coat was for sale or at auction years ago. And, I mean, honestly, I just wasn't in the financial situation I am today to even think about it. It sold for $11,000, which was just a ridiculous amount of money in the year that it sold. But anyway, currently it's on sale for $250,000.
Holy moly!
So yeah, I kicked myself in the butt for not being able to do that. I saw a pair of Bart Starr cleats at one time that were for sale, and I didn't do that. And so, if I was to say, anything that I'm after, it would be anything game used, from the '60s. That's really where my emphasis is right now in my collection is going game used on all that. I'm not really into the current day players. I'm just not. And trust me, I'm a season ticket holder. I go up for 6 or 8 games a year, fly up there. But I just, number one, I have so much respect for the 60s players and before. If for nothing else, I can read their signature. I just refuse to pay $400 for a signature of somebody that I can't read. And, and I say that. And of course you walk over here and I mean, unless I told you that says Aaron Rodgers, who would know? I mean, but you go to any of the other players from back in the 60s and 50s and 40s and,
well, they all had beautiful signatures. Dave Robinson, gorgeous.
Every one of them.
Marv Fleming, gorgeous.
Yes.
The list, Jerry Kramer, you could read them. It's gorgeous. And as collectors, we're all saying the same thing. Guys, come on, let's make it legible. Just don't scribble something down out there. Take your time. We would like to read it. Know
like this. I'm honestly
Clay Matthews.
hoping that's Clay Matthews, but
yeah, that's Clay.
Okay, but come on, seriously.
Right. Yeah.
And but you get down here to, I mean, I know who that is, and I know who that is, and I know Paul Hornung.
Hornung.
You can make out all these guys. I don't know who's on the back, but Aaron Rodgers and
Brett Favre.
Brett Favre. Yeah. So, anyway, I don't want to sound negative, but that's why I've got a whole closet here full of jerseys and stuff that I used to have, in my collection. And I've taken all down only because I just want to celebrate the guys that mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is. And this is the era I grew up in is the 60s. And that means a lot to me to just come up here. I'll sit on the couch or put back my recliner. I'm sure people are wondering, well, you don't see a TV in here, but let me go up here. Let's see.
I don't know why you would want a TV in that room.
Well, I didn't. And so what I did, I've got a 154-inch projector, and so I retrofitted up there in front of my display, so it doesn't take away from my collection. But yet, when I want to have everybody over to watch a Packer game, it's right there. So it works out pretty darn good.
Yeah.
But
now, do you go to? I know we met at Brett Favre autograph thing, a couple years back. Do you go to many autograph signings? Marv Fleming was just in, Illinois. I tell people all the time, hey, when you see these guys, Paul Hornung, I kick myself that this past year, Forrest Gregg was supposed to be in Chicago, and he unfortunately passed away before then.
Right.
So I recommend anybody, when you see these old players go to autograph shows, get out there and see them now.
I'll tell you what. Let me turn my camera on here. There I am. I'm sure you're looking at all my stuff versus me, but I totally agree. And Chad Ovitt and I have lots of talks about it. That these guys are disappearing from and if you have something that you want to get signed, you better do it. You better take advantage of it. I've got, just so much signed stuff that typically I don't need anybody else. But it's, I wouldn't, to answer your question, no, I don't go to signings all that much. I wanted Brett to sign, that was when they were retiring his number, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I had his the game program that he was featured on, and I guess I'll go back in. Let's turn this around. Yeah, I had him sign the game program that from that weekend.
Yeah.
And then the induction banquet thing, I had him sign that there. But that was well worth it. Pricey, but it was worth it. You know that.
Right.
This is one item that I didn't show. This is Brett Favre's key to Green Bay, key to the city. I was there when they presented that to him in Green Bay at the convention center. I think it was at Thanksgiving and one year. And I was sitting there in the, I clear as day. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, how would somebody get a hold of that? So, how would somebody ever get a hold of that plaque? And sure enough, it went up for auction, and I was lucky enough to get it. So, kind of neat to have that connection to it. Trying to put this back.
I know that you probably don't want to hear me say this, but I think so many times people miss out on the vintage collection that is out there, the pins, the glasses, the programs, and that kind of stuff. That's something that I've taken, a liking to. I have a very, very small collection. The dolls. I love the Packer dolls, and I think people need to appreciate it and spend more time researching the vintage stuff because it's disappearing. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Excellent point. And I've talked to other collectors about that, Jim. When I first got into this, I was I wanted nothing to do with the 40s. I wanted nothing to do with the 30s or the 20s. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know enough about those guys. I just, I'm into Brett Favre and I'm into, Brooks and I'm into all this, and well, as you mature into collecting, you start figuring out what's really valuable. And it isn't the mass produced stuff from China or, the photos that, are a dime a dozen. You hit it on the head. Back when I started collecting, I could have found blue and gold everything, jackets, pennants, everything. They're disappearing.
Yeah,
they are disappearing. And now the same thing's happening with 60s stuff, and so, guys like me have bought a lot of it. And so there's a shortage of it. You're not going to find it. If you have the ability to do it, I would suggest to any collector out there that they really take a step back and ask, is the stuff I have in my collection going to be worth anything? Is that mini helmet signed by Timmerman going to be worth any money? It's not. It clearly isn't. And, but at the same point, if it means something to you, you were there, you shook his hand, he was a great human. Heck, that's the best collectible you can have. So, you've got to, but just to collect stuff for the sake of collecting stuff, I don't think is a wise path to follow as far as memorabilia.
Well, I think a lot of times people want the massive man cave,
Yeah.
and they want tons of it in there. And you got to stop and ask yourself, okay, that looks good, but is it you want the quantity or do you want the quality behind it?
Yeah.
I have done a lot of work for Marv Fleming on his website. Marv Fleming has sent me an autographed jacket. That's something I'll never get rid of, those kind of things that I could pass along to my kids and have a story behind it is more important to me than a replica helmet of Clay Matthews.
Right. I agree. Now, to each their own. I look at collections, even on your group, people have been, since I joined, I've been looking, and it's just so neat to see the pride everybody has in their, and I wouldn't take anything away from them. I just say, hey, if you're out there and you're in an antique store and you see, like Jim said, you see an old pin back or you just like I showed you that that 1930s blanket. It was sitting in an antique store with a bunch of current day stuff piled on it. Gail sent me a picture. She was up there visiting, and she said, "Do you want any of this stuff?" And I said, "Well, no, none of that. But wait a minute, what's under there?" And she takes it out and holds it up for the camera. I said, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." So, you got to keep your eyes open for things. But I totally agree with your statement. It's, I would recommend to any memorabilia collector to try to mix it in a little bit. And I think you're going to find yourself mixing it in a little bit more, and you're going to find the history. I've learned so much about the history of the Packers by collecting memorabilia. And, it's made it really fun. It's a great hobby, and you meet such great people like yourself and your group, so.
And there's nothing wrong with the people out there, and you kind of briefly hit on it, that does not have the budget to go out there and put into memorabilia.
Exactly.
I got to tell you, this little, Brett Favre handmade pin right there came from a great friend. Those are the kind of things that I will hold on to forever.
Right. Oh, without question. And I have many things like that.
Yeah.
And I can't get rid of them. Everything I have current day has to do with my son. Taking him to Lambeau and my son-in-law and my girls, and there's a meaning behind everything, and we collected all that stuff together. I'll never get rid of it. I just don't have room for it in here.
Right. Yep. Well, when I met you, I had my young son, Brett, who's autistic.
Exactly. Yes.
I named him Brett, and I'm taking him to meet Brett Favre. That will live with me forever.
Wow.
And it will live with my son.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make it
what
memory.
A moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, is making memories. Yeah, it really is.
Glenn, you were very gracious to send me, quite a few of your magazines here.
Yeah.
In the next day, I'm going to go through and I'm going to be looking through all these comments.
Okay.
I'm going to be picking out, some people, and I'm going to send these and some of those stickers that you sent to me as well.
Sure.
And I'm going to send these out to these. I know I've looked through these probably 30, 40 times just since the time that you sent to me. Even this right here is a piece of history. What you have is history.
Yeah.
And we are blessed to have you in our group and sharing your collection. And I'll probably bug you again very soon to go live again and spend more time, because I don't think you could sit here and go through this collection in an hour's time.
I really had to hurry through it because I wanted to show all of it. But truthfully, I've got great stories about so many items that I didn't really get into because it's time restrictive. But, again, that's what I loved about putting this collection together, is learning the people behind it and learning about my family. I learned so much about my family. And my dad worked for Don Hudson at his auto dealership. My dad actually looked like Don Hudson. And when you bought a car at Don Hudson, I don't remember what kind of car he sold. It wasn't an Edsel. Anyway, it was right there. Anyway, when you bought a car, you got a signed Hudson football. Well, Don would send my dad out there and have him shake the hand and give him the football, because he didn't want to go out there and meet the people. So, just crazy stories like that, it's priceless. So, yeah.
I like to say one more thing, and I'm asking our group members with all please due respect, okay? This man has been gracious enough to share his collection with us. Please, people, don't disrespect this opportunity by hitting up Glenn and saying, "Glenn, do you have something you could sell me?" It's not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. Don't disrespect Glenn and ask him, "How much was this?" or "How much was that?" or anything like that. We're great. He's been gracious enough to show his collection, appreciate it. Don't ever think you're going to compare to it. Go out there, build your collection according to you and the memories you have.
Right.
Make it fun for you. and appreciate what Glen has been able to share with you, because you're looking at the history of the Green Bay Packers. So I'm in awe, Glen, and I
appreciate that.
I thank you for your friendship.
Oh, well, thank
Most
you for
importantly.
reaching out as well. I know we met years ago, and I feel like I've wasted some years not being close with you, because I think we're a lot alike. So
I appreciate that.
You're the good-looking one, and I'm
Well then, Glen, I'm not going to take more of your time. We've went well over the time. I appreciate it. I will hit you up and bug you again about this, though.
I'd love to. Trust me. I love showing it off, and a lot of people always want to ask if they can come for a tour, and this is a little bit more comfortable for me to show it off this way, because it's just it's quite a thing to look after it. So
right.
Anyway.
All right, Glen. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for the offer for tonight. I appreciate it so much.
Okay. I will talk with you soon, and I always end it in a certain kind of way, because we do bleed green and gold, and we do like to say it loud and say it proud. What do you think that is, Glen?
Go Pack, go!
Exactly, my friend. I will.
What else could it be?
I will talk with you soon, and I'll see you in the group.
All right, sir.
Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.